Okay, coming to opening file with the fopen function. We have the fopen function. It's a better method to open files in PHP. The function gives us more options than the read file. For the read file, it just opens and reads the file. For the fopen file, it opens the file, it reads the file, and also closes the file. So we'll be using the text file, our udevelop.txt for this one, and we can see the syntax down here. We have the fopen. In it, we have a udevelop.txt and we have an R. This R means it's going to read the file. Then we have another exception here, or another message or instruction, say or die. That is to say, it's giving it an instruction that if it refuses to open the file, it should close the file and say unable to open the file. Die here is a function in PHP that also terminates the page if a function is not carried out. So then else you have another one that says echo the fread for the file size of udevelop.txt, and it should close the file after opening it. So let's head to our text editor. Okay, if we come here, I've already written it out. So for this one, I'll be using txt.file, but we can just change it to udevelop so that we'll see it and it aligns. So we can see or die. Alright, so we go straight to our browser and reload this. And we'll see it also does the same thing with the read function, but instead it adds some functionality at the back which you can't see, like closing the file for safeguarding. So nothing can come into the file as it is written here because it is closed. You'll be needing that one not very often, but when you want to do with uploading, downloading, and loading data from maybe from Excel, from Word, or that into the database, you'll be needing this function also. Then we have another function called the fread function, which is also called the read file. The fread function reads from an open file. That is to say, for you to read from the file must be open. So following the same parameter, the first parameter of fread contains the name of the file to be read, and the second parameter contains the maximum number of bytes to read. So you see it having the fread, the file it wants to read, and the file size is all the data inside this udevelop.txt file. So it's going to take the same way it has been written the first time. So it's the same thing. So it's just further explaining what the fread does. It reads this file. Okay, then we have the close file or fclose function. The fclose function is used to close an open file. It's a good programming practice to close all files after you are finished with them. You don't want an open file running around on your server, taking up resources. So the fclose requires the name of the file or a variable that contains the name of the file we want to close. So we have this file open, right? And we have the fclose file, just like we had for here also. Whenever we open any file, we want to close it so that we can see that the file is closed and no further operation will be carried out on the file except for that. Now we have the fgets option, which reads a single line. The fgets function is used to read a single line from a file. Let's say example, we have this our udevelop file and we want to read just a single line from it. Coming to our text editor, we see that this is the way it is being written. So we want to open just the first line to see how it looks like. So we're going to go back straight here. We have it here. So we're going to change the parameters a bit. We do this and we go straight to our browser and reload, and we can see that it only reads the first line, which is saying asynchronous JavaScript and XML, which is what we have here. So let's say we want to read the first line of file for every file we want to upload or something like that. This is a better option or a good option to do that. Next, we check for the end of the file, FEOF, that is the file end of file. So the end of file function checks if the end of file EOF has been reached. So for every function, it is useful for looping through data of unknown length. Want to Let's say we have a data that's given to us containing a whole series of entries of students. I want to know when the end of file is reached so that the loop doesn't continue infinitely. We can use the end of file to check if it has reached the end of file. The FOF function checks the file line by line until the end of file is reached. So for example, you have it like this, a file given to you, same file we're working on, and we put it in a while loop because we want to loop it out. We don't know how many times it is. So now we have while it is not, this exclamation mark means it is not. While it is not the end of file, it should continue echoing the file and breaking. But when it gets to the end, it should stop. Let's go ahead and write that in our editor and run that in our code. Okay. So we go back to our browser and we run it. So it keeps up running them and running them and running them until it reaches the end of file. Note that the difference between this is that it is looping it, but it's actually looking as if it just echoed the whole file. So that is what it's still going to do. It's still going to echo the whole file out as long as the end of file is not reached. Alright, now we have the read single character, which is the fgetC. The fgetC function is used to read a single character from a file. In the example below, we are going to see from our udevelop.txt that the file will be read character by character until the end of file is reached. So let's go ahead back to our text editor and see that and see what it's going to give us. So for this, we are going to be editing this out. We don't need to break because we're actually reading all the files. So instead of this, we're going to use fgetC and we're going to go straight and run it. Now what does it do? It reads everything on a single line. So it's different from when we had to break it to read each single one. So we had to loop this one. So it's reading all the character. That is why it is coming out together with no breaks. We have dealt with this one in the other function, in the other previous examples rather. And we know by now that the fopenfile is just used to open a file. Now, we had in the last one where we are writing R for read, but now we can have an option for writing. That is to say, the file can be written in or something can be appended using the A tag also. So let us say you want to have a file that, like, you're creating a PDF format where you want to put information into the file after it has been generated from a user. This function is a very good function to get that working. So we'll be seeing it soon, although it might not be useful for us now, but later we'll get to do it. So how do we write to a file? Now, the fwrite is used to write to a file, and the first parameter of the fwrite contains the name of the file to write to, and the second parameter is the string to be written. So we have, let's say we want to create a new file called newfile.txt and want to write the following text into it. John Doe and Jane Doe. Let's go ahead and see how that looks like. Okay, so now we want to write our files into this. We have, using our predefined value develop. Okay, don't forget we'll change this to right. So we have our txt to be what? We say John Doe and we put this. Now, what does this ln mean? Ln means new line, right? So if we see a new line, it means after this writing, you should add a new line to it. So let's go ahead and see. So we're going to be given the fwrite, so we should write my file, and it should write the file txt into it. Before we do that, let me just go ahead and make a copy of this file. And save it as udevelop2.txt. Okay, so that we don't lose the file inside. Okay, so we have it here, and we close my file. We come here and we read. So we're wondering, where did it go? But we won't see it until we go into our text editor and see that the text in udevelop.txt has actually been replaced from the previous asynchronized and list of programming languages or scripting languages to John Doe. We can also go back and test it again. If we go ahead and add another one, txt equals to I am a young developer, new line, and go and keep our fwrite, my file, and our text, and we go ahead and run that in the browser also to reload it. Nothing, but we'll go back to our text editor and see that it has been written again. I am a young developer has been added to it. Why did he add it to it? Because we are having two lines to write, right? So the fwrite is used for writing our work into a new file. So whatever you want to write, you can just write it and echo. This could be an input from a user. Let's say you want to create something like an invoice or a receipt, or maybe say you want to generate a certificate, and the user has to input details, his name, the year he finishes, and all that. This function can be used to do the writing into a file you have already created for the user. Now, there's another one we're talking about, which is how to append text. While the W function for the txt or for the file writes into a file, the A function appends. That is to say, whatever you have before does not get affected, it only adds new. So let's just go ahead and try it out. Okay, so instead of having A here, we're going to have a W here, we're going to have A, and we're going to change this text is let's make this Jen Doherty and say I am a young dancer instead. Then we can go here, refresh, and go back to our this, and we see it has already appended it, right? If we had used, okay, let me show us the difference now. If we had used the write function, this would have overwritten everything. I put this one as the new one. Let's go ahead and see what that does. You see, so it takes that one away, but leaving it with the append means it adds new document or new information to the file.